Greetings, my name is Mars, and I am host of the Watchers Prophecy News, only on www.kdov.us, America's best Christian radio station. You can find us here every Saturday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Time and Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for our repeat show. Also on KDOV Radio, we have many good hosts and other shows for you to tune into, and I'm glad tonight that you are here with me on the WPN. Now, before we get started, I would like to ask for a humble prayer. A prayer for our nation and our new leader. You see, no matter what you may think, we're legally not out of the woods just totally yet. Even with Hillary's concession speech, there is still secrets. I'm going to get into some of this tonight, make you very aware of what is going on with our new president. More so than the mainstream focus of the news has done in many months. You see, for diehard Democrats holding out hope that they won't have to live through a Trump presidency, there is a last incredibly long shot for them to latch onto. There is legally. A surprise twist in the Electoral College, in fact, though Hillary Clinton won the popular vote by 200,000, and that's what makes this such a plausible possibility, even though it's far outside on the fringe. Trump has won the minimum of 270 electoral votes necessary to be elected president. As of late Wednesday, he had 290 to Clinton's 228, making her fall short by any count whatsoever. Now, according to the Constitution, chosen electors of the Electoral College are the real people who will vote for president, even when they meet on December 19th in their respective state capitals in secret, by the way. However, there is technically nothing stopping any of the electors from voting their conscience and refusing to support the candidate, thus overturning the election. That is legal in the United States. So beware, it's not all done yet. But I think it's funny that Huma, being a Muzzy, gave the actual phone call to the Trump camp conceding victory. Thought that was a bit fantastic in its own way. And said something to the respective ideologies and thinking of both parties. See, the revolution doesn't stop with a Trump presidency. It deals with you and me and all of us who were deplorables that need to find the will of our Lord in this reset of our nation, as we know this election does not neglect one word from the word of our Lord and the prophecies that will someday befall us. I'm glad now, however, I can say someday and not tomorrow, as our clock was very close to the judgment of the nations, and now more time has indeed been given. It's my view. It's been added to the clock to see if we will be judged as the others. The holdout prayers have been heard. Now, I've also wondered a lot in times to know why some would see some prophecies, and I'm making that in many of the debates I've had with many people that are smarter than me. Talked to Bill Silas not long ago, and Bill was telling me that his view was different than mine in this regard and that. And you know, I have wondered that how some would see some prophecies that refer to one nation and its judgments, like the already discussed land of Shinar and the Jeremiah 51 judgments, were not in some way a dual assignment, a dual argument of judgments, in such that we could stray from the actual path of God in our nation, that such things could only be, as scholars have said, be applied to the original nation just as much as our own, Babylon or New Babylon. And I'm wondering if God did not do that on purpose, knowing that these very things and people's prayers would matter so much in our day and age. There's much hidden evil still overcome, and things you should know. Tonight on KW Radio, the WPN will get heavy into this reset and what it really means for our nation. You see, you must do your part in this reset. You must do your part. It wasn't just Trump that was elected. It was you that was elected as well. It was you elected to do your part in this great, grand reset of ours. It's not just Trump who got the reprieve from nuclear ashes that Hillary was going to put us into, but it was also from all of us. Much will be required to even this score and bring back our nation into love and respect for all life, and hope that our country, our nation, will, for you doing your part to take hold of this reset and bring peace, will bring back these jobs, bring back life to our shriveled land, who under a muzzy dictator has suffered far too long. You know, I look at things the way they are today, and people say, well, look to the future. Well, I'm telling you, the way the future was going, it wasn't very bright. And I didn't want to look in that direction because in some regards, the past looked much better. Today is the first day that I know of that children of the age of even the first grade are being taught globalism on a scale that makes muzzies just as right and believable as the doctrine of Christianity. This must change. This is America. We're not going to take a blind eye to the world, but to embrace that America can stand out from the world and still be a blessing and a hope for free men to do great things. And we're going to do those things. You're going to do your part in winning this election because you helped win this election. Your prayers helped win this election. Don't think they didn't, because they did. Now, on election night, there was a lot more going on than met the eye. Let's get into that something. Sure, many were watching the results and wondered where all the stories suddenly were of the election interference and other threats given out by both the Russian underground and other political dissidents, even from the Democrats. But I have news of things that did go down, and you should know that this was a very fair election. I mean fair in the sense that no one else would get involved, and it was seen to that no one else would get involved. I think even our Lord had a hand in that. But let me tell you what happened election night. Election night, 3 B-52 strategic bombers armed with nuclear weapons and 2 B-2 stealth bombers armed with nuclear weapons flew together from the U.S. to the North and Baltic Seas before being intercepted, quote, by other NATO aircraft in an ambiguous aerial exercise. Exercises like this was called Polar Roar. They enhance cooperation and reinforce NATO's credible, visible posture in preserving a safe and secure environment. Now, Bummer did this, one, as a soft reminder message to Trump that we need NATO, but also, according to General Kevin Hayek, Deputy Chief of Staff for Operations at NATO, Allied Air Command, AirCom, in a statement, he said the bombers lifted off from different bases in Missouri, North Dakota, and Louisiana before meeting up over the Atlantic and undertaking an uninterrupted flight over Europe, where they were fueled midair, a key component of the exercise. Once there, they were treated like intruders by local NATO jets as part of a rapid reaction of the alliance's air policing training. However, some of that was a lie. We'll get into that in a minute. NATO's air policing mission preserves and safeguards the integrity of the alliance's airspace, as we all know. And they were scrambled and launched within minutes in response to aircraft not following international flight regulations or approaching NATO member countries' airspace, explained a statement from NATO. Now, I have finally found out this press brief was not completely true. Only partly true. I'm going to give you the full truth. You see, the aircraft from the other NATO nations were not there just to train and intercept American bombers in a pseudo-Russian practice mission, but in reality, their true mission was to fly with us as support in a aerial armada, a grand armada, of just under 24 aircraft, with our bombers being armed with real live warheads. That's right. Now, it's not just that they all flew together, it's where they flew. This was all done as a show of force by NATO to Russia to stay out of the election, as they had done something in effort to warrant a war, such as pulling off some false flag somewhere on U.S. soil or elsewhere. We were ready with an opening wave of enough bombs and firepower to wipe Russia completely off the map that night. That's right. Probably didn't know that was going on. Now, as a kicker, it's a real double whammy, and I have this info right here from a real U.S. general, one of my contacts, that has been told the full dope on what exactly did go down on election night Tuesday, and what it and all the details. Now, this double whammy revolved around words of war already. We know that. We heard all this back and forth flying things right before the election. Threats United States generals at the Pentagon did not really dismiss lightly, and they prepared for this in a show of complete might. The route chosen for the drill was not incidental either, as I said. After leaving the Baltic, the planes will fly over the North Pole. They did, in an area of increasingly substantial territorial claims, to which might as well be terror, since they're terrorizing Alaska, to which Russia is dedicating a unprecedented military resources right now. Even set up many Arctic camps, very small camps, but there's so many of them now. The North Pole looks like a little city. The mission will end at the Joint Pacific-Alaska Range Complex, JPARCS, where the planes will conduct a bombardment exercising other NATO bombers. These dummy bombs that will be dropped by other countries were, by the way, dropped just as the results were coming in to all the post stations, and Trump was being clearly elected as president-elect of the United States. Now, this dropping of these bombs happened just one click from a Russian polar encampment for all Russian eyes to see, and believe me, Putin did notice. Show of force that night, folks. Now, let's say that wasn't too much, was it? Just 24 nuclear-armed aircraft. Not all of them were nuclear-armed, just the bombers. But this, in fact, went down with the second stage of the drills called Sea Breeze 2016. Okay? This was a continuation of that, actually, and it started on Monday, and Tuesday was the grand show of force day. That was election day, where the USS Ross fired off 2 cruise missiles that wore a huge alarm in the Kremlin. That's right, that happened on election day. I bet you didn't hear that. Those 2 missiles fired went some 570 miles off to the north and west to polar designated target areas. Both hit their targets, by the way, and blew them to smithereens. Now, this exercise will last until July 30th, just to make sure the Russians don't do anything tricky. We've got a lot of ships in their little sea. The exercise is on the 15th, the integration of Sea Breeze with these bombers, which is a, quote, annual exercise held in the Black Sea, designated to enhance interoperability and strengthen global regional security among NATO nations. That's interoperability. Boy, some of these words. According to the United States Navy. The only thing that I can see that's changed was a live fire day on Tuesday, election day, accounting for time zones. This, along with the bombers and fighters, sent a strong message to Moscow, who then, after the election, sent Trump a telegram. Direct from Putin, with following words: "I look forward to working with you as the alternative was not acceptable. This message, of course, was heavily censored and doctored. But I've got the message firsthand right here. I'm looking at it. I look forward to working with you, as the alternative was not acceptable. And I agree. I don't know if Putin is going to be able to work well with Trump, because Trump is very heavily engaged in Americanism. And Putin is going to find out that communism is not going to be tolerated very well. Now, to show you how massive this drill was, the first stage lasted from July 11th to July 17th with 25 military vessels. 2 planes were going to be Russian aircraft in this scenario, along with 2 Russian attack helicopters, and some 1,700 personnel that were taking part in the exercise to intercept these 4 aircraft that were deemed nuclear ready in the international waters of the Black Sea. Of the 25 ships there on election night, 5 were nuclear armed and ready. Along with those bombers, that should have told Russia that we weren't playing with our election. Now let's go back to 2 days before the election and remember that Hillary had said, should the Russians hack us or do anything, any false flag, that it would be met with military force. In fact, this could have went either way. Had Hillary won and Putin did start crap already in the air, was enough NATO aircraft and bombs to put a nice mushroom cloud right on top of Moscow. Hillary and Bill both made stern gestures during their last privileged intel meeting to the that they were updated on vital U.S. security interest, and pushed back versus Putin and his threats of it, that there would be war if Hillary was elected. And yes, she was for sure worried that her first act as president would be to declare war on Russia. You see what God has saved us from? Don't take that lightly, folks. I'm here to tell you, all my warnings were real. Only the grace of God saved us in your prayers. These liberal crybabies everywhere are losing their minds. They are now starting to realize that this country has taken a stand and chosen to drain our government of the corruption that has been sitting there for many years, including some of the most dire frustrations of World War III just being around the corner, and the sour ties that are being fed by tyranny and corruption at the White House, fanning the flames of war and conquest by oil of the globalist cabal of the Illuminati. And we know that's true. We know it. We're not just a bunch of tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorists. We know the truth. Now, all of this military going-ons also protected the election process for whoever won, but it's interesting to know that we just averted a major world war, and I'm not the only one who believes this. That being said, why did the Pentagon send that many bombers? Well, you see, they were a little worried too. So we've got to ask, before this is all said and done, what is in store for America now? What's next? It is strange indeed. But we need to follow through now with the grace. With the grace time period that God has given us as a nation to move forward and carry on with this reset, to change the face of the high court and do whatever's needed to refine in God we trust and real American values. This isn't The Simpsons. This actually happened. So what is it in store for America? And what can we do to further this reset and drain the liberal swamp of these insidious snakes? Well, I'm going to tell you. Trump has proposed to start at a very unlikely place. And I believe that this is a God-given thing. He said that he was going to be a cheerleader for America this week in all things American. His staff has made it clear in his policy statement that schools and how children were being taught would indeed change. Now, isn't that a boon? World averages would be scraped, meaning testings that would compare U.S. students with those of other nations in the world. Second, to reinstall Americanism as vital in schools, it's going to happen. He's going to make sure that the Pledge of Allegiance is stood up for and that an American flag is put in every classroom to purge these liberal ideologies, these liberal teachers from teaching LGBT transgenderism to our babies and weed out the elements of structured New World Order in our classrooms. This includes even national mandates on book materials and resources. As you can guess, there is no real reset unless we can glean real results, and those must start in the American values we once had in our own schools that we was raised up with. I find it just amazing that every day I could drive my little car to high school. I didn't have one then, but many did. Many of my classmates did. And they had rifles and guns and shotguns hanging in their windows right on school property. Things are going to change, folks. Now, they may not change that drastically, but they are going to change. This will include arming some teachers in the classroom and establishing more programs to encourage these things that were core taught in our society as America. From wildlife management, FFA, and even gun safety and training programs among our schools to re-educate our young to get a respect for things that are just put down, put away immediately. Yeah, my gun jumped up and murdered 11 people. No, it didn't jump up and murder anybody. My gun's been sitting on top of my Bible for the last week, hadn't moved. I'm sure I voted for that, and if we change, it is my belief, as with Trump, that we must start with the young, and I believe that it's got to happen. That's the way it has to happen. Number 2, on the campaign trail, Donald Trump declared himself the law and order candidate, and said at the Republican convention that the crime and violence that today affects our nation will soon come to an end the way it has been seen. Now, what does that exactly mean? Because the spin, O'Reilly's famous for saying the spin stops here. Well, the spin has always been when some gangster jumps up and starts shooting people at a school or at a cafeteria or at a nightclub or anywhere else, that you see it automatically turn out to be a muzzy, which it always has been, just virtually so. And that it was immediately spun in such a way that we needed to feel sorry for those people. Somehow we were treating them bad and we needed to bring more of them over here, or we needed to do something nice for them. Give them billions of dollars, do something. Well, he said safety will be restored. Beginning January 20th, 2017, safety will be restored. And the spin, at least from the White House, will change. But can a president have an impact on crime and the local police who fight it? I don't know. Trump didn't offer very many specifics on how he would make America safer, but some of his aides have that were on his list, and so I want to get to that. But you understand, there were promises such as the promise Bill Clinton made to add 100,000 new officers to the streets in the 1990s. Bill Clinton did not get but about 20,000 new police, mostly in just 2 cities, New York and Chicago. So this would be a major undertaking even for Trump, but he has given some indications, like I said, from his aides, how he might act on these issues which have the largest impact on America's safety. For example, gun control. Yep, I'm going there. It is an issue that a president could push as an attempt to reduce gun violence, as Obama has done. Control the gun. Make sure the gun just doesn't jump up and shoot all your friends. We don't want it to do that. My poor gun. Maybe I should get out a paddle and just start beating my gun right now. You bad gun, you bad gun that jumped up and just wanted to shoot everybody. Mine didn't. Trump made it clear that during the campaign he wouldn't. In fact, it is very possible on a federal level, being the soon change in the Supreme Court, that most states will soon have a federal approval for them to have folks open carry, and plans on changing the high court just so that can happen nationwide. Now, that being a state issue already, Trump has a major plan for that. Just by holding a conference, and he plans on hosting, this is the first time president's ever done this, hosting the National Sheriff's Convention this coming year to push for citizens trained with weapons for their own protection and push this at the local level. This will be a major push that will start with the convention and likely end up in the courts and state legislature, as new positive open carry attitude about guns and ownership will sweep this nation under Trump. And in fact, everything that he has said about the matter indicates exactly that. Nevada voters on Tuesday passed a measure requiring background checks on nearly all gun sales, and California outlawed possessions of large-capacity ammunition magazines. And now you will have to have a background check in California just to buy ammo. Well, you know, the black market trade is about to get out of control there. Trump said he was going to fix that. So don't worry, Californians. Don't worry too much. There might be some hope once Nancy Pelosi dies out, and of course Barbara Boxer's retired. So maybe we can actually get something going there in California for y'all guys. Trump told both the Fraternal Order of Police and the International Association of Chiefs of Police, both which got his full support during the election, that he would not support any such changes to our Second Amendment, period. He said gun control laws are not the answer to gun violence. That was his sternest statement yet to date. Trump wrote in response to FOB questionnaire, the presidential questionnaire, the Second Amendment is a sacrednicity, sacred to America, and will no way be modified in my administration. Did you hear that? Maybe I can let my gun off with just a warning now. President Barack Obama used that pulpit to convene a task force on 21st, it might as well be 24th, 21st century policing policy, call for improved relations between police and communities. Those relations have become so tense in recent years over concerns about fatal police shootings, especially of the African American men, whom I actually feel sorry for in the extent of how they've been treated under Obama. Promises were made that were never kept. American police officers kill nearly 1,000 people a year. That's FBI statistics, according to news media accounts as well. And roughly 1/3 of those involve people who do not even have a gun. So in stark contrast, since he could not make the cops do as Obama wanted, he signed Strong Cities Network, and they were to deploy January 1st. John Kerry had his hand all up in that too, by the way. But now that is even in total question, Strong Cities, as already Trump says he strongly, he used it twice, strongly opposes Strong Cities UN troop deployment, and it would not happen while he was president. You gotta love that. Obama never once supported the priority enforcement program launched by Immigration and Customs Enforcement in late 2014. It focused on deporting immigrants who were gang members convicted of felonies or multiple misdemeanors or are considered national security threats. You wonder why Sheriff Joe Arapaho in Arizona is in jail. It wasn't for targeting Hispanics. It was for that very statement. because they weren't deporting these people that had multiple convictions of felonies and multiple misdemeanors and were considered national security threats. In fact, Obama only deported 5 folks whom he brung in of the 65,000 wave of mostly Arab and Syrians, citing that their belief system was not in question here, really. But all these murders, you know, when they say Allah Akbar and then shoot your kid, but their belief system wasn't in question here. Not here. The stupidity is overwhelming. Trump, however, said that their belief system was killing the American belief system, and that this PEP program would get high priority deporting anyone who was convicted of a crime before they became a citizen, period. This one strike and you're fired policy is warmly welcomed by the Watchers Prophecy News. One more for the win column, in my opinion. The way I see it, how all this could have turned out for the side of evil and the dastardly things done that could have sent our nation into the globalist, most foul tyranny ever. We have our reprieve in what we do now with it really does matter. All right, next we're going to cut the head off the chicken, so to speak. The total reform of the Justice Department and the end of BLM, racial Clinton dealing New World Order Soros justice with a decapitation strike, a head to the floor of the entire Justice Department, with Lynch being one of the first folks to get, "You're fired!" Total reform of the FBI and total reform, smaller federal bureaus like the Bureau of Land Management, and comments he's made about climate change and shaking up the EPA to the very core. The Democrat judges that busted the Bundys and other atrocities that are performed by the FBI and BLM are on the list. No wonder these same judges released the Bundys, because should have Trump been elected, and he was, their federal jobs would be in total chaos and up for grabs. Trump has went on the record to reform the federal courts in both California and Nevada, respectively, making them all shake in their very boots. And I can't blame them one bit. It's time! Your time is coming. Now it's becoming, thankfully, clear to the Democrats. And maybe I'm a little bitter saying that, but I can still be bitter even though Trump won. These people are evil. Not insidiously evil. I'm not saying your friend who's a Democrat that you like, he's evil. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that their message, their way of thinking, their socialist synchronicity with the globalist, that thinking is evil. That Trump, now president-elect, has no business possessing even a shred of political power, they believe. Democrats are already stating on the way to the door, knowing that they'll soon be out of a job, that Trump, the political provocateur, is forcing us to confront some of the very inconvenient truths about these hypocrisies that have underlied the U.S. and Obama's own personal foreign policy. And they really could play a valuable role in upending an outdated and even absurd political status quo that has been going on in the United States for way, way too long. In a recent piece on the Foreign Policy website, Stephen Wald, a professor at Harvard University's John F. Kennedy School of Government, argued that Trump's focus on advancing U.S. interests, stopping free riding and by other countries, and skepticism of nation-building efforts could have encouraged a much-needed foreign policy debate about the scope and limits of American power. It's correct to assume, he said, that Trump, for a Republican, is taking his presidency, now listen to this, on much as JFK had done, and for sure he was a reformer in the JFK sense of the word, and when he said it, you can bet, "I'm going to make America great again," he definitely meant it. You see, directly related to these three arguments are Trump's criticisms of NATO. At the heart of this is his argument that the U.S. shouldn't continue to offer unqualified pledges to defend allies who aren't willing to pay their fair share. And I agree. If you don't love your country enough to defend it, why do I have to go do it? Love your own place. Defend your own place. That's what my gun's for in my place. Get your gun and defend your place. They've told this to the NATO budget. He went even further, questioning the alliance's continued reasons about all of it. And I agree. I do agree that NATO should exist. I believe NATO's there for a good reason, but I agree with Trump. If we're going to have to foot the bill, and that bill is half of our GDP, then we're not doing this right. Something is not happening. The idea of the U.S. not meeting its treaty obligations to the alliance, which that is not under question. It's the money, has sparked almost as much outrage. People can't separate the money from the policy obligations. And in these policy circles, it's far more than Trump's feud with, say, even the Khan family. In response, President Barack Obama, during his Democratic National Convention speech, declared that America's promises do not come with a price tag. That's right, Obama said that. America's promises don't come with a price tag. We meet our commitments, he said. This was in response to the day before Trump saying on the last debate this was actually a rebuttal of Trump saying, Trump's response on the last debate, that the United States should not pay for other nations' protection, as we need to bring our troops home and virtually stand in the very pants of Ron Paul puts on daily on those issues. He is for us getting out of the United Nations. Did you hear that? He is for us getting out of the United Nations. Who would have ever thought in a million years we would wake up to the building and ask them to take down their twisted barrel gun statue? By the way, he said that statue has to go, as it was ashamed of New York, and I agree, and walk in the UN and tell them they're all fired. I do not know if Trump will do this, but many of his aides are saying that such commitments to do such a thing might be un-American, but then again, you never know what Trump will do. And he should definitely end the United Nations. And, to me, should he decide that, since he's also leaning toward getting rid of the United Nations here on U.S. soil, that is a decision I can live with. What about you? The truth is that Trump is doing the U.S. and the world a service by holding a giant mirror up to our very collective soul. And it's forcing us to confront the ugliness, the irrationalities, the hypocrisies, the underlying of so many of the policies of the Democrats that they believe are sensible, or at least inevitable. Every last one of them, the globalists, wanting a world economy, a world view, a world global initiative in charge, not just rulers of nations. And this mirror of change has the Illuminati and the world cabal literally trembling in their shoes. Moreover, the alliance's increasingly effective posture about Russia, which helps justify the U.S.'s continuing massively disproportionate military spending, is considered by many of these analysts to be a central reason for Russia's own increasing bellicose actions. Now I agree with that, because if you keep one-upping your neighbor, it's just going to lead to ugly. You better love your neighbor like the Bible says and treat him the right way. You can even treat an enemy the right way and heap coals on his head a completely different way. Bible clearly makes this plausible and possible and doable, and I believe that Trump will do that. He is going to lump Russia in a different way. Trump's comments on Crimea, Ukraine, and Russian President Vladimir Putin and U.S.-Russian relations are far closer to the truth than many would like to admit right now. Trump's claim to George Stephanopoulos that Russia is not going to go into Ukraine is obviously, sadly mistaken. They already have. Given the invasion and the annexation of Crimea, the Russians are doing the dirty. And we're going to stop that, but we're going to stop that with common sense and not with all these nuclear war gestures that you hear almost on a daily basis. Now, I don't think this is the time really for jokes. I think that his willingness to consider recognizing Russia's annexation of Crimea generated a lot of condemnation, and you have to understand that this place was part of Russia once before and now is again. But the reality is that the U.S. and its allies have already recognized Russia's fiat accomplice in this matter in all but name, because the event has taken place and he's already moved nuclear weapons in there. Not only that, the U.S. and other powers have a sordid history of acquiescing to conquest and effective annexation of territories from Morocco to Israel. All Trump has done to say out loud is what everyone already knows. You're not going to get away with anything. We're going to change some of the communist thinking around the world and show folks this new American volume has some real clout this time, because I've even put my own money where my mouth is. How many men will step up and say that? A great amount of respect for Trump. Spent his own money doing all this. A lot more than I could say for Hillary Clinton, that took millions upon millions upon millions of Arab money, so you know where her interest lies. That's one reason she wasn't elected, right there. And just as everyone has said, it's her own fault. I agree. You know, we can criticize Trump's bromance with Putin. People believe that. That's not a bit true. Given the latter's brutal and authoritarian policies toward his own people in support of Assad and what he's doing, killing children in Syria. But Putin's actions are, to me, a little different from a host of Western allies and client states, from Honduras to Turkey, Saudi Arabia to Uzbekistan, Egypt, and much of Africa. Our policies there have been horrific. Those are all going to change. Same can be said about Trump's apparent praise of Libya's former president, Gaddafi. Now, the reason Trump said that was because of remarks that Clinton made. You know, we came, we saw, he's dead, who cares? Well, Trump said something else about both Gaddafi and Iraq Saddam Hussein, men who were, and I'm going to quote Trump the best I can, there's things I can't say here, men who were our sons of a bleep, a phrase that was first used allegedly by Franklin D. Roosevelt to describe the Nicaraguan dictator Anastasio Somoza before they had outlived their usefulness and were disposed of in a highly profitable but strategically disastrous wars that cost the United States millions of dollars. But no one ever knows where those dollars went. Simply put, the Mandarins that are guarding the gates of U.S. foreign policy don't like Trump. They don't like him cozying up to Putin. Even the whole edifice of U.S. realpolitik needs to be done away with in favor of a set of principles that actually supports human right and decency everywhere. Obama put us in fear of nuclear war every other day. It seemed that as it was even reported here, but according to Trump's camp, to talk to the man, Putin, makes sense, because we can have peace and still keep Russia in its place and out of Ukraine. Trump saying to Putin, I can get more done with honey than a stick, but don't forget there's a stick guarding the honey. I like Trump. Similarity with his labeling of Obama as a most valuable player of the Islamic State of Iraq and ISIS, let alone its creator, along with Hillary. It's classic Trump saying that he will bomb the heck out of them and Russia will help them. not giving 1 inch, however, to the world elite who want an American sector in Syria near the Golan so they can drill the Nest 3 find, making sure this will never happen by one of his first acts to fire John Kerry and do it in person. I can't wait. Can't wait to see the look on his face. Wonder where he's going to run off to. Now, let's shift gears a little bit. Perhaps the most panic-inducing report that I've seen so far comes from CNBC, which is, as everyone knows, a very liberal station. Host Joe Scarborough, who revealed that Trump repeatedly asked at least one foreign policy expert brought in to advise him why the U.S. can't use nuclear weapons since it's gone to all the trouble to build them. So they spent 30 minutes explaining to Trump why he couldn't use nuclear weapons, and Trump told him to leave the room. You're fired! There is a stick to this man. Don't think there's not. It's not going to be a pushover. Very Ronald Reagan-esque in some opinions, and I agree with that definition. This might sound like some preposterous question until we realize that the U.S. is set to spend upwards of $1 trillion over the next 30 years. That's $1 trillion. Do you know how many zeros that is? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 zeros to modernize its nuclear weapons program. You wouldn't even know what to do with $1 trillion. Trump has defied modern thinking and has told the world, mess with me and you're messing with an inferno. He said that. A veiled threat to the global elite who up until now have been satisfied with the global meddling, and everyone from Soros to Dick Cheney to the Bushes to Zuckerberg, all these democrats who believe that they will eventually get their way. Now, believe it or not, I even have an update on that. Doing a little bit of research on the Bohemian Grove in the last meeting, going through all the notes that were linked through to various websites, including Anonymous, and I got my hands on some documents that I thought were very interesting, and so I surmised them all here. A new push by the globalist, and folks, you're going to turn a bad sour lip, a frown, when you hear this, but this is next. And this is what's next for us. It's what's next for Donald Trump. It's what's next for our nation. And we are headed in this direction like a speeding freight train. This is why each and every one of you must concede that this election wasn't just about Trump winning. It was about you winning and about having this reset that was so badly needed. Not just for the time for you to party it away, but for you to truly do something to change this country back to our roots. This new push by the globalists is that they may now need nuclear weapons. Did you hear that? That was from the Bilderberger meeting right there. And I'm telling the truth, that was right out of Lord Rothschild's mouth. I'm going to get into some details about this. If they ever want to change anything, according to Lord Rothschild, they now need nuclear weapons. They don't even have a country, yet they now need nuclear weapons. This election stunned the world, and the globalists taking them all totally by surprise and all. We know that. This combined with the new ideas taking shape at the last Bilderberger meeting, these new links have emerged that indicate to me that they need to find a way to make themselves not heard as the way the mightier nations are heard, but as a group who have nukes. That's right, a blackmail group. A group who has nukes. Now think about that. And this soon, with the money and the power that they currently have, they could easily influence such nations as Pakistan to sell them a few nice juicy nukes, just to them, as they already have done to Saudi Arabia during their early Obama years. And that was linked here on the WPN as well. Folks found out about that here. This terrifying fact of change, now gone nuclear, is also a thing that Trump will have to consider deeply. As Obama and Bush have both said many times that nuclear weapons in the hands of terrorists were the worst possible scenario, you can also see that nuclear weapons for blackmail by the rich, ultra-rich, elite globalists are now going to slowly come into play as they have nothing else left. Well, all those Democrats, they all foamed at the mouth. Their little juicy victory party's already said and done, yet Trump won. I'm foaming at the mouth too. Trump promises he will restore America to its former glory. And make no doubt it's going to happen if you participate. And he will make life good again for Americans whose lives matter. Americans' lives matter. Trump's campaign slogan implies are not particularly good. I didn't think they were, but he got his message through. For those of Trump's base of white working class men without college degrees, this message resonated very strongly in this election. This used to be a great country for them, and now they're hurting. Cities plagued with crime and no one having any work to keep a family afloat in areas of our nation hardest hit was answered by Obama to place refugees in these very places in hopes that our new land would be seen as a good starting place for new successes. That was in Obama's speech. Well, in my opinion, and in Trump's, it was and is going to be an epic fail. In Trump's mind, to be great again, we must bring back companies and lift unfair tariffs that make no sense at all and will have done nothing under Obama's place to place more refugees in these areas, a policy nothing more than a crime, and these terrorist-ridden areas just a play area for these foreign nationals. Trump's plan includes sending them back to Syria, and I hope for our sake that he does just that. If they want to land and make it free and have good things, they need to go back to their own place and change it. We did here. We had brave men who stood up and said, let it happen in our lifetime so that it won't happen in the lifetime of our children. Yes, I'm preaching. Yes, I'm getting loud. But if they want to land and make free, and they want to have good things in it, they need to go back to their own place and they need to change it, not bring their muzzy loving changes over here because it's unacceptable. He told the New York Times in an interview published Saturday, when was the last time America was great? They asked him that question. They said, Mr. Donald Trump, in your mind, when was the last time that America was great? That time, he said, was in the 1950s. And although unlike some who find backwards thinking a shame, I strongly believe that our core values have been muddled in the mud and spent through massive corruptions that have changed our core values. And not shockingly, the American voters have said the very same thing. Can't be wrong. Trump said if you look back, there was a period of time that when we were developing at the turn of the century, which was a pretty wild time for this country and pretty wild in terms of building that machine. That machine was really based upon entrepreneurship, he told the Times. Trump also pointed out the late 40s and 50s, a time when he said we were not pushed around, we were respected by everybody, we had just won a war, and we were pretty much doing what we had to do, and by golly, I'm going to do the same. That's what he told the New York Times. North American Free Trade Agreement signed by former President Bill Clinton in 93 opened up trade barriers between the United States, Mexico, and Canada. Really, it did nothing but make other nations want to trade with us for the most absurd reason of all. Reasons that we would not give them a huge tariff, but instead it was okay for them to raise their tariffs, and we're not going to take that anymore. Not one more day. It is a horrible deal. It is a wrong deal. And Trump said he is going to end it. I support this idea, and I believe it will be a blessing when they decide that our tech is just as good or better than and what to buy, that they can buy ours when no one else will sell it to him. In fact, Donald Trump has vowed to end China syndrome, where things are made there and sold here, and make sure that USA stickers, made in USA, would be a thing retailers would be proud of, or they would suffer greatly like the Walmarts of this world. And he put them in their place. He's going to. You're about to see it. This made in China crap's going to stop. Mr. Trump has never done drugs, drank alcohol, or smoked cigarettes, and he is quite proud of it. He's not forgetting to mention that on numerous occasions he had an older brother, Fred, who was an alcoholic and fought with addiction that he seen ruined the man's life. And for many years, eventually, he died from it. He warned young Donald never to go his way, which he accepted to the very letter. Trump's parents sent him to New York Military Academy when he was 13 because he was a very energetic child. They thought the institution would teach him some discipline. He graduated from the military academy in '64 before continuing his education at Fordham University and eventually the University of Pennsylvania, a Quaker state, by the way. So I checked out the military school. I did. And I believe that through my checking that I have seen enough. It is a hardcore school. You'll think you're pretty much in boot camp if you get sent there, even as a child, because how hardcore it is. I mean, hardcore to the bone. If you can't hang there, you won't last very long. And Trump overexceeded the commitment there. Many of his classes were, admittedly, Cold War era hand-me-down war college classes. So it's easy to see his military views on things in those regards, but I think he will surround himself with generals of a semi-hawkish era nature that at the same time will find temperance in his older age of some of that Cold War thinking. Trump has had 3 wives, Ivana, Marla Maples, and Melania Knauss, if I said that correctly. He and Knauss have been married since 2005. Altogether, Trump has had 5 children, including Donald Jr., Ivanka, Eric, Tiffany, and Barron. Now, that's going to be a large first family. Trump darn well knows what he says, and he means what he says by his own words. I'm quoting him. That I darn well know what I said and darn well know what I mean. Now, that may not be the most Christian thing to say, but I believe the man genuinely loves America, and he is spending his own money. He's not only concerned with immigration, but he's extremely concerned with our veterans. He has proven himself already in what he can do and make possible. America can't keep running on empty as we have with this present administration and the sites and seasons of Muslim occupation in the White House. It's got to end. I believe that Clinton, Bernie, and Biden are just more of the same. Trump speaks up for us. He tells us the truth. And like all of us wanting to save our great nation, we the people need to give Trump the chance, just like we did Reagan. Reagan didn't fail us, and Trump won't fail us either. Illegals are not in the 14th Amendment, folks. Oh, I rejoice to Christ for the reprieve of our land. I do. Hillary is a woman we know that did not care about our military. She would have opened our own precious country to any idiot that wanted to walk on in. And then more of the same. It'll be a Muslim that kills our children, and yet they'll spin it just to let more Muslims in. Well, we don't have enough of them in. We're not being politically correct. Let's not even discuss Benghazi because you would lose. And she has just been caught again after the election, lying even more about her emails. I hope that if Obama does not pardon her, and Trump is playing a game of poker right now, folks. Listen to me. I believe that Obama, if he does not pardon her, and Trump's own strategic hint that he is not going to push her anymore, that's a ploy. That Trump's not going to push her anymore, that's a ploy. It's just fodder for Obama, and Obama may believe that. I hope he does. I hope he believes that Trump's not going to push her anymore. to perhaps forgetting to pardon her so that after Obama is well gone from office that she can then face the music, even if it's on the lowdown, and I fully expect that's what he's doing right now, being so cordial and all. But he's trying to make America great again. I am an independent and I voted for Trump. This is Mars for the Watchers Prophecy News on KW Radio. Y'all come back now. You hear?